You dummy. Oh, Pablo, what am I gonna do with you?
Release the Kraken!
So I figured you guys were owed an update today on our trees. For those of you who are new to the channel, we have a roughly 600 tree permaculture orchard. It sits on about 6.5 acres of land. It's built on a slope. There's about a mile of swales and berms that are dug to retain water, and all the trees are interplanted. So we have a mix of chestnuts, hazelnuts, elderberries, mulberries, apple, Siberian pea shrub, butternut, and black locust trees, all scattered out in our pasture. The dream that I have is that someday I can have this silvopasture where I can graze animals and harvest tree crops and have this great sort of cornerstone business for our farm. Admittedly, that's several years off, but I'm really excited about it. We put the permaculture orchard in back in 2017. Over the course of last year, I spent a lot of time mulching it and weeding it and trying my best to maintain it. I replanted it about, 45 trees or so last fall, kind of basically patching in the trees that didn't take and that didn't quite grow or thrive, putting in new trees. And right now, they're just sort of sitting and chilling underneath the blanket of snow. But I figured today would be a good day to go out there and check on them and see how they're all doing. So come along, folks. Let me get this camera off. The first thing I actually want to do, though, before we're actually looking at the trees themselves, we should actually just note, I'm seeing a lot of rodent activity over here by the ducks. See these little trails? You can kind of see them right here. These little pathways represent rodent activity. And if you look out here, there's actually a fair amount of it. The barn cats have been feasting a lot down around here, but they're not nearly out here as much as I'd hoped for. I'm starting to think I might need to start trapping. My theory is that the duck house has been attracting a lot of the rodents because the ducks spray their feed everywhere and there's just like a lot of waste feed that gets dropped around on the ground. And I'm pretty sure that that stuff gets picked up by the rodents, which probably isn't good, so I'm probably attracting a lot of rodents. Oh, here's another one. You'll notice our scarecrow lady, she fell down. Her stand broke in a windstorm, and the ground's too frozen to get sort of her up off the ground, so she's gonna kind of rest there until the spring. Now down here you can see this is a black currant shrub that I have. I actually used to have it planted over there. In the fall, when it went dormant, I moved it over here. My thinking is that I'm gonna actually start putting a lot of just different random berries and shrubs right down along this area. I pour so much water out from the ducks, so much water drains right down here. It seems like such a good opportunity for, just watering plants by using the ducks' wastewater. And so I want to start getting more plants down around here. The first one I put is that currant, but there'll be a lot more to come over the next few months, especially in the springtime. I'll probably plant a lot of things over there. Now you can see some sort of animal tracks. I don't know, somebody was wandering down around here. think that looks like a coyote, if I had to guess. Maybe a fox. This one here looks like a deer. I don't know. I'm terrible at... I think that looks like a deer, right? Hoof, hoof, hoof. Like that. They probably came up through the cedar swamp over here. And went that away. If anybody has any advice on some good books or good reading material related to tracking animals, I feel like I see so much stuff in the snow. Like here's another set of tracks. Like I can't even tell if that's a deer or a coyote or a chupacabra. I don't even know. Well, here we are with our trees. You can see a nice little chestnut in here. Every tree that has one of these orange tags as we're going through here, you'll know, they were a tree that I replanted this fall. I'll leave a link to the video up top if you guys want to go back and watch that process. Things are looking pretty quiet. It's always tough to tell what these are without the tags. I think this is an apple tree, actually. Here's a black locust. Wow, look at those thorns. They mean business. So the reason I planted black locust in our permaculture orchard is because it's a nitrogen fixer. It brings nitrogen to the soil, helps the plants around it. It's also great for pollinators, and it also makes for some great lumber if you make it grow straight. I'm looking at some of these, like this guy, and that one's quite the curvy spine that it's got right now, but that's okay. I just let them grow natural. I think they're really cool looking trees. So I have this theory of maybe feeding some of their leaves to the ducks and see how that goes. Look at this one. I think this was the biggest black locust we grew. Look at this. So just for your frame of reference, this was about the size of this, probably last year at the same time. It's actually even sprouting a second branch to it. Look how big this thing is. It's up over 10 feet, I'd say. Wow. Maybe just about 10 feet. Here's an elderberry plant. Oh, this got damaged. That's a shame. Yeah, so this whole row is interplanted. It's elderberry, black locust, elderberry, black locust, elderberry. And I mean, just to see the difference in what a range of black locust trees can do. So you have that tall one right over there. You have this medium one right here. And here's a little baby black locust right here. I planted all of these black locust trees at the exact same time, but unfortunately they don't grow all at the same time. Yeah, this elderberry is looking pretty good though. Yeah, it looks healthy. About a month ago when Allison and I were cutting down our Christmas tree, we found a vole up on the top of the pasture. My guess is that most of these tracks that you're seeing here are from voles. Oof, and there's quite a lot of them. The further I get out here, it actually has me worried. Worried for my trees. So many tracks. Now here we have an apple tree. Just a little baby apple tree growing here. I will say it looks like somebody's been eating at the bark, which is probably signs of rodent damage. That's not good. What you gonna do? Now this is a mulberry tree. Another mulberry. Another apple tree. This one looks like it's doing a little bit better. Somebody's definitely been nibbling on this apple tree. I planted a lot of the apple trees. They're actually wild apple trees with the idea that they would probably get eaten a lot by the deer. I wanted to have them almost as like decoy trees from our mulberry and our chestnut and our butternut, our elderberry, really wanting to let those things try to thrive. So I guess that philosophy is sort of working. Now this is a butternut tree that I planted this fall. You can see by this tag here. Ooh, there's another good black locust. Look at those thorns. The wood is really rot resistant. It's very durable. I find it so relaxing to be out here. Even though there's not that much to see right now because it's all under this blanket of snow. So this summer I made the decision to just try to give up on trying to mow our swales. I tried for a long time to keep up with it, but they just grew so fast and furious. And I couldn't get a mower up on the hump because it's just of the shape of it. And so I've just sort of let them go wild. I'm hoping the trees survive and do okay in spite of that. That decision not to mow, very much a risk I'm undertaking. You know, so like where I'm walking right here, I mowed all of this down so that it was nice and clear. But on the humps, I wasn't able to mow. And I'm worried that a lot of the rodent activity I'm seeing is a result of the additional grass that I left this year. That grass wasn't there last year, and this amount of rodent activity wasn't there last year either. So it does have me a little concerned about that risk. But if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But all in all, I don't see anything too egregious. All the tree tubes are staying up. The trees that should be there are there. Everybody's looking relatively healthy, at least as healthy as they can in the early stages of January. Oh, you guys see little barn cat? She's hanging out way down there. She's waiting for me. She's probably wondering what the heck I'm doing up here. She's like, come on, dude, what are you doing? Some of you have had questions for me about our permaculture orchard in terms of how we developed it. I figured this would be a good time to take a minute to answer those. And the main question that I always get is, how do I get started? And really for me, the most important first step in terms of getting started here is to really think about what sort of tree crops you want. Perennial tree crops are awesome because once you get them planted and once you get them established, you get production from them year after year after year. So unlike an annual vegetable bed that requires a lot of ongoing work every single year, once you get past some of those initial years and once you get past just some of the basic maintenance you'll have to do, those trees are going to provide an abundance for you and for your family for such a long time. So if you're thinking about doing tree crops on your homestead, I would say run to it because it's such a good opportunity. And then in terms of getting started, really think about what you want. What do you want to eat? Do you like chestnuts? Do you like apples? I found mulberries to be an awesome fruit. Elderberries, I believe, have such great medicinal properties and just sort of possess a lot of potential that people haven't truly explored. That's why I planted about 200 elderberry plants here. But really make that list. And once you have that list, start to think about what sort of space you have to work with. What's that space like? What's the shade characteristics? What sort of drainage do you have? And when you have a sense of that, you can actually start to really map out where you want those trees to go. You know, the important thing to remember when you're growing trees is, once you put it there, you're more or less stuck with it there. Unless you want to cut it down or try to transplant it, which has a tremendous amount of risk and requires a ton of work. And so, making the right decision to put a tree in a place is important. But then the other thing that's important is just making the decision to plant that tree, because the longer and longer you wait and the longer you take to deliberate, the less time you've had that you've given yourself to have them get established. We planted this whole permaculture orchard back in the fall of 2017. We've had our first full year of growth in 2018. As I'm looking at 2019, expecting to get maybe just a little bit of production, especially from the elderberries and maybe the mulberries. And then as I look out probably 4 or 5 years from now, that's when I expect like the chestnuts to really start to get up into full steam ahead. I guess my best advice to you is really think about what you want to do in 2019 and do it in 2019. I think the spring and summer are such a great time to do your research and prep your growing orchard, to make sure you have everything right, make sure you're smart about your soil, make sure you're smart about your placement, make sure you're smart about drainage and water. But then really by the time you get to the fall, it's the perfect time to plant bare root trees, which are nice and cheap and easy to acquire, and they go in great when you hit the fall period. And so if you could think about it right now and map out where you'd want to do it, and really do your research and do some of your work over the course of the spring and summer, and then by the time you hit the fall and put those trees in, you're going to be in such awesome shape. And you know, your homestead is going to become more diversified, your homestead's going to become more resilient because you have those tree crops. Another question that I've received recently, it was actually on Instagram, was people asking about how our hazelnut grove is doing. And I got to admit, of all of the things that I've done here, and I know I've got a handful of regrets, the hazelnut thing has been the biggest failure of all of them. The hazelnuts themselves, I've got some shrubs that are still there, but most of them have gotten mixed in with the weeds. The situation I have for the mowing right now is a mess, and I'm pretty much ready to just start from scratch and try to redo it in 2019, or just maybe abandon it. But the whole hazelnut situation didn't work out the way I wanted it to. So as you look out here, right, we've got 8 rows. So there's the berm, which is the trench that sits right down there, and then there's the swale just beyond it. That's where it sort of catches the water. I've got tree plantings on both sides for the first 5 rows up, and then the last 3 I actually left the berm side unplanted. Really the reason I did that was a couple fold. One, I had just run out of energy and resources to try to keep planting trees back in 2017. And then 2, I wanted to see how this stuff performed. I wanted to see what worked, and I wanted to see what didn't work, and really have the space to expand in the future. And so I'm going to probably start expanding this spring and summer with probably some additional plants and some additional perennials. I'm really thinking about a couple different crops up top there. If you guys have any suggestions on that one, let me know. I'd love to hear your thoughts. So there you have it. That's the update on the permaculture orchard. If you have questions or any thoughts or comments for us about what's going on with the permaculture orchard, don't forget to leave them down in the comments. And if you want to learn more, just keep watching our videos and we'll keep telling you more about them. And please don't forget to subscribe. And I will see you guys next time here at Goldshaw Farm, where we're trying to build a farm in Vermont.